You're listening to Optimise et al., a technology podcast powered by Naviate.
The second theme of this podcast. And now we're going to be talking about how to utilize databases for your advantage. So we talked about simple blocks. We talked about, having quick to update the families and mapping the parameters, etc. You spoke about how things were added or details were added at concept stage and how we've taken that away from there. Now, with regards to utilizing this for our advantage, how is it you talk about the families and things, and now I think the geometry side of things and driving that data is really important. Can you tell us a bit more about how you utilize this for your advantage?
Yeah, so I think it helps sort of across the multidisciplines really. Architecturally, we were able to use the equipment blocks to very quickly provide visually engaging layouts that we could quite quickly pull together and show the client and the rest of the design team exactly what space we had to work with. Yeah. We had a design team that also included sort of a foundry designer and foundry specialists, so they knew the pieces of equipment that were going to be as part of the process flow. And ourselves as architects, we'd not necessarily designed a foundry before, so it was very much a conversation and discussion about how best to lay it all out. So to be able to quickly take their equipment list, lay out these very simplistic blocks and show people in a 3D environment, right, these are the pieces of equipment we've got at the moment, this is the size of the building we've got, let's discuss. It was a really, really useful tool to facilitate that. And this was obviously just at the time as everyone was moving on to Teams and working remotely. So it actually worked really well. We had some very long Teams calls going through layouts in a lot of detail, but it was just on that one aspect. Everyone was kind of kept engaged as we were live, moving about blocks, testing layouts, and the picture was becoming clearer in everyone's minds. Obviously, the foundry designers they knew exactly what these things were, and we were having to go along on the journey of visualizing it as well.
The way I see it is that transparency. I think having the Teams calls and the way that the way that our working habits changed. And I think sometimes you'd have to be really clear and concise in the question that you ask in order to get the right answer back. And I think that must have helped a lot on the journey. But the way that you kind of naturally progressed and kind of gone back to the basics, really. So you mentioned about, showing the client in 3D and the building blocks. This takes me back to Lego. It's, you have building blocks and you put them together. How can I best, build my Lego to create the shape that I want to create?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. So sometimes the simplest ideas are the best ideas to kind of let us be more innovative and let us be a bit more freeform with no strings attached. Let's try this idea. Let's see if it's going to work. And that's how, the ideas flourish, really, isn't it?
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly that. And on the sort of the simple building blocks themselves, I think the blocks themselves, just visually in the sort of the 3D environment, quite engaging. But not to plug Naviate, but we use that tool very effectively to just quickly color up these basic 3D blocks, and almost in a Lego type way, very graphically clear. These rooms, these departments are coloured up in this way, and it was just a very quick way to clearly show different spaces and different departments to the client.
Amazing. So for anyone who hasn't heard of Naviate, this Naviate Accelerate feature, color elements. Well done, James. That's brilliant. Okay, perfect. No, it's absolutely fine to mention different software that you've utilized, if you'd like, within this as well. So with regards to generating design platforms and using databases to produce your design options, what happens next with regards to the results? How did you kind of look at the results and analyze them? So following those meetings, how is it that you kind of appreciated what was churning out of the database and how you can now utilize it to your advantage? Was there any rules or anything that you've set up?
Yeah, I suppose in that example, it was very much through human interaction, the results. We didn't necessarily use any kind of algorithm outputs and sort of test it in a generative design sort of way. So as far as we took it on that one, it was very much producing the layout, testing it through our own knowledge and through the client or other designers' input and evaluation. So yeah, it was far more manual in that sense. So whilst we'd perhaps tackled some of the issues, we certainly hadn't tackled all of the opportunities out there to our disposal.
Yeah, but that's for the next project, isn't it? I mean, you've done something. It's baby steps almost. You've done things already. You've learned from how you utilizing the database up front, and then now it's kind of looking at the output and what kind of relationship you can have with that, the rules and the data that you have coming out of that.
No, exactly that. But and I think, as you say, even from the bits that we had implemented on this project, when we kind of had a end of project review, I think everyone appreciated the steps that we'd made and the efficiencies, the clarity amongst the designers and the client team, and the kind of the clear benefits that the project had gained.
Yeah. Okay. So now, James, we've reached the end of that project, and you've looked at processes, and you've looked at how we can maybe learn for the next project and how we can benefit the next project, especially if you're more involved rather than handing over the project to another kind of consultant. Is there anything that you would think, okay, to the listeners who are listening into this podcast, what can they do to kind of have a bit of a call to action? How can they get involved with wherever they're working to become more database driven?
I think for us, we did have a bit of a discipline sit down discussion and have a look at reassess where we are and where we see any opportunities. Because I think it's good to kind of just take that step back from, whilst we've all got ongoing demands on projects, it's always good just to take a step back and have a think. Is there any opportunities across our workflow? So we did do a kind of a workflow assessment.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of a good place to start, just to have a high level overview, and to include as many people with different views to it as possible. You don't always want the people that that you get some people who will be on board very quickly and very agreeable with, but you also want the people that will challenge any ideas that are put forward. There was at the BIM Summit itself, one of the great speakers at the end mentioned about friction, and that some of the best ideas will get an incredible amount of friction. And it's kind of they discussed how you should then embrace that kind of friction, and
Absolutely.
and I guess through having a number of people around the table with a different viewpoint to it is kind of one of the ways of going about that.
Yeah. It's like finding diamonds, isn't it? It's, you got to go through a lot of mess before you find the beauty of the diamond. And it's like that, we relate it back to, we might laugh about it, but it's something we can relate back to day-to-day work. The more hardship you kind of face with something or trying to produce something, the outcome of it is so much sweeter. And definitely I agree with that. The more friction you have, the better the outcome. And, thinking of things outside of the box, which is why it's really great to see that you've involved, more of the team and even people beyond the team that might have been working on the project, because they look at things from outside of the box. They give you that different angle, and, innovation or great ideas is not just coming from a certain type or a certain team. It actually can come from everyone at every level. So it doesn't have to be driven from the top up or from the down up. It's literally can come from anywhere. And it can be an idea that just kind of springs to mind, or it might be something that you think, oh, it might not be such a good, but when the time is right and you put that idea to fruition, then that's when you see the great results as what you've seen here, James. So it's really great that we've managed to kind of look at the project that you mentioned with regards to its from the start to completion, and it's great to see that's now built on site. So hopefully you'll manage to visit them as well, James. And with regards to databases and is it databases or database? With regards to database, is it plural? I don't know either. So yeah, that's something I need to check. But with regards to an organized database, the best outcome of it is to kind of concentrate on what's going into it, and understanding how the naming methodology is going to be, how it's going to be working, and not getting too bogged down with that. But because the structure is really important, and when we actually have a look at where we're going to be storing that data, how access is going to be at the end as well of the project, and who's going to be able to access it, is always good to leverage those specific data ideas, etc. James, any final comments on today's topic?
I think it's just give it a go. There'll be ideas that people have a go at that don't stick, and parts of it might, but it's just trial it, see how it goes.
I love it. That's great advice. Well, James Bell, thank you very much for joining me on today's podcast. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I look forward to hearing your next journey. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Take care. See you in the next podcast. Thank you for listening to Optimise et al., a technology podcast powered by Naviate.